Hey everybody, we're going to try something a little bit different today. I'm kind of testing out my new webcam too. I don't know how the one that came with my laptop sucks so bad, but it does. So I got an actual decent webcam, so testing that and the microphone out. I have an article, or kind of I'm writing somewhat of a book or just a loose collection of ramblings on Patreon. I posted this probably 2 or 3 months ago, but I thought that it was pretty good and generally helpful. This is actually chapter 4. The first 3 I just kind of ramble and whine and complain about me being a baby for the last 39 years. But the name of the book is How to Win by an Expert in Losing. And I'm a loser. I mean, I'll freely admit it. It's not that, it's honestly not that bad of a thing. And as I'm kind of getting older, I'm realizing that losing and weaknesses teach you a whole lot more than strengths do now that I'm bowling left-handed, and I still have a little bit of coordination stuff to work on, but now that I can actually execute, or most of the time, or actually physically do what I'm trying to do, all this stuff, all these tricks that I've learned, all the ball reaction that I've learned, and whatever else, because I had to use so much stuff to compensate for not having the physical ability. Now that I do have the physical ability, even at 75%, I think I've still got a lot of room for improvement, lefty. But now that I can, I mean, my quality shots when I throw them are so much higher. Now my bad shots are a whole lot worse, but my quality shots are so much better now that it's like, man, if I could even had a handful of these right-handed, it'd been a whole different story. But I just could never comfortably execute right-handed. And so all these things that I've learned, all these tricks I've learned, all the ball reaction stuff I've learned, now that as soon as I get, 90 or 95% of what I think I'm capable of, I'm pretty optimistic and pretty happy about where I'm at right now. And if I get better, that's going to be, the better I get, the more fun it's going to be. But at the same time, rambling aside, sometimes the endless ball stuff gets old. I'm big into ball reaction, but sometimes people can get sidetracked by that, and they look at specific balls or whatever else. Anytime I bowl a set or anything, people, well, what ball was it? What ball was it? Well, the particular ball itself, there's nothing special about the ball in particular itself. It's about the ball reaction, and what you have to use to create ball reaction is a combination of a bunch of different things. So it's not like if I shoot a big setter like Brent Bowers shot 899 with an Axiom Pearl last night at North Rock in Wichita. That ball it's great. It's pretty good, but if you use it in the wrong situation, it's going to be awful, just like every other ball out there. And if you use it in the right situation, it's going to feel like magic. So sometimes people don't go that far, though. They think, oh, okay, well, he shot this with an Axiom Pearl, so I'm going to go buy an Axiom Pearl, and it's going to help me out. Well, it might not help for you. It might be the absolute wrong ball reaction for you. Now, fortunately, we have, about 24 other bowling balls that are pretty good too. So, but it's all about, it's all about putting all these things together. And this chapter specifically, my patrons have given me permission, I guess, to share this publicly. So I'm going to go on ahead and read this. Again, it's chapter 4 of How to Win by an Expert in Losing. I call it Analyze and Interpret. And so I'm just going to go on ahead and basically read this. This is more of a mental game thing. This is more to help you actually get better, active, actually progress or whatever else. So all rambling aside, I'm just going to go on ahead and read through this here and see what you think. So, all right. So one of the best things you can do if things haven't gone the way you'd expected or wanted is try and figure out why that is, and then figure out what you can do to change that. I've had the attitude my whole life that if you keep your head down, you keep your mouth shut, and just work hard enough, it'll be recognized and you'll eventually be rewarded. That in and of itself isn't a goal, though. It's a complete absence of one. I mean, what are you working on? What are you working for? What are you working towards? If you have no goal or direction, you're just digging a hole for the sake of digging a hole because it's hard work. Now, the best thing that you can do in this world is to work towards a goal, achieve it, and then use that to benefit others. And I wrongly believe that investing in myself was selfish. It can be if you do it just to earn rewards for yourself, but you're worth nothing to others if you don't accomplish or achieve success that's going to benefit both you and have extra for them. Worse yet, some people depend on others to support and help prop them up. And some of the hardest working people I know need the most amount of help because they're not putting it towards success, accomplishment, or any definitive goal. They're just working hard because it's the right thing to do. I've long been one of the most naive people out there. I genuinely expected to put the majority of my work and effort towards others and have it reciprocated and rewarded. And that's absolutely just not the way that the world works. Now, one of my biggest mantras has become, if somebody doesn't ask a question, they don't want an answer. Now, this can have a broad meaning and a set of applications. You know, I've spent my life in overkill. If someone would ask me for a dozen eggs, for example, I'd bring them 5 dozen and then likely complain about the lack of appreciation. There are all kinds of positive quotes about work ethic, like initiative, going above and beyond, and working hard and giving your time. But you have to understand what that means and do that all within reason. There's a certain point where you're going too far above and beyond what's expected, and then you're just wasting your time and effort. Furthermore, if someone asks you for nothing in the first place and you feel compelled to go out of your way to give them something or help them out, they owe you nothing. And it may not even be helping in the first place. You need to put your effort into building yourself up, building yourself into a person of value, and let people, build yourself into a person of value and let people who want or need your help come to you. A person who has $100 and invests that towards gaining $1,000 is infinitely more valuable to themselves and to others than if that person were to just give away the initial $100. Now, if they're investing the 100 to earn the 1,000 just to hoard it, that's when you're getting into selfishness and lack kind of any discernible goal. However, if you take that $1,000 and randomly start handing it out to people, whether they need or ask for it or not, you're doing yourself and them a disservice. Build up enough that you can really do some good for people who need it. In the process, though, you need to continue to improve and advance yourself. You need to be relentless and driven, but in the direction of a very clear and definitive goal. Now, one of my biggest challenges along the way is that I at least seem to be capable and above average at everything I do. This made identifying any one thing or creating a specific goal, somewhat difficult. My skill, or kind of my gift, seems to be understanding concepts, and that's a big key to accomplishing anything. Now, I also never found anything that really stuck because I simply enjoyed being good at things. The actual activity didn't really seem to matter that much. I'd get into something until the curve started flattening, and until it started taking a serious commitment to continue to improve. Now, this wasn't because I was lazy, it's because I was interested in doing so many different things that I didn't want to devote the bulk of my time to something that I wasn't sure that I wanted to pursue. I ended up investing in bowling out of lack of options more than anything else. And for those of you that haven't read the first 3 chapters or not a patron, that might not completely make a whole bunch of sense, but just go with it. Now, I've always been into video games, especially the ones that made you think. Part of that is that I'm a very fair-skinned ginger, and so anything outside the amount of preparation and whatever else, the amount of headache that just going outside for any longer than 15 or 20 minutes presents just relegated me to being indoors. So it wasn't, that's kind of an introverted shut-in too anyway, but when you go out and play in the snow and you get second-degree burns on your face, that didn't exactly make you want to, go mountain biking or anything. So now, I've always been into video games, especially the ones that made you think, but I could do that in my spare or my downtime. And this was a long time before people started making videos or streaming it or considering a professional career. I mean, I was 4 when the original Nintendo came out, and so that was, still a couple decades before Twitch even came around, or YouTube gaming or anything like that. So now there's no way I could have considered pursuing any other kind of sport further than I did. I'm also not built for more physical sports. I'm about 5'11", 6 foot tall, pretty skinny, and I've dislocated a shoulder playing basketball when nobody touched me. I've also dislocated a toe stepping off of a curb. So I'm just not very, robustly built. I don't know what you'd call it, but Now golf was something, but it was always a little too expensive to get into, so that stayed a hobby. Plus, it was outdoors. We've talked about that. Bowling was the perfect opportunity at the perfect time, and despite getting into it as it was beginning to decline, it offered the depth, the challenge, and really the only opportunity that I saw to finally push into commitment. I bowled forward to a little bit of backstory, getting away from this for a second. I started bowling, or my parents bowled when I was a kid, but when my little brother came around when I was 3 or 4, it got too expensive, and so they quit doing it. And then when I was 11 or 12, they got us both into a league, and that only stuck for a year or two, I think. And then we started getting into other kind of sports and stuff. So I bowled for a couple of years with a Kmart plastic ball, and then I didn't start again until I was 19. And so I had the basic idea, and I actually continued to watch the PBA, professional bowling, the PWBA, especially in the 90s when I was, growing up, because I was still interested in it. We just, had other things going on. So, yeah, I started that in 2000, I think. 1999, 2000 is when I kind of started back into it, and that's when bowling was kind of on the downward slide. But getting back into this, my failures my whole life have really boiled down to my refusal to respect my own value. And this is something I talk about in the first 3 chapters, is that I've been a loser my entire freaking life, and it's not because I'm just a born loser, or it's just because I'm too nice and way too naive. And I always cared more about, everybody else doing well and trying to help somebody else out. And I didn't really have the killer instinct attitude, because I never wanted to make anybody feel bad, because I knew what it was like being I was in school a year before everybody else. I have a weird birthday. It's August 15th. And so I ended up being a year early in school. And so I was always the youngest one. And besides that, being small and scrawny to begin with, it just, it was a little rough from the sports and competitive end of things. And for anybody that's seen my senior picture, I took it in a 3X sweater with a cat. So, um, tragedy, absolutely tragic. So yeah, I'd always go into something, and even still in bowling matches up to a couple of years ago, I'd go into it knowing, well, they're better than I am. They should win. They know that they should win. They're trying to be nice to me, and I'm trying to be nice to them. But I would generally get into something and just concede it to them in the first place, and I wouldn't even put myself mentally in a position to upset them or be anything like that, because if I beat them, even though they're better than me, I would feel bad, and everybody would know, oh well, they're better than me and whatever else. And I've always been a little bit too fair and respected people too much. It's good to respect people, but sometimes you can respect them too much, especially when you're in competition. So anyway, back to this. My failures my whole life has really boiled down to my refusal to respect my own value. It's easy to find opportunity when you're giving everything away, but nearly impossible to get yourself anywhere or find any kind of return when you're doing that. Now, opportunities are only really valuable as long as they're realized and as long as they're used to advance yourself, rather than just opportunities to produce for everyone else's benefit. I've found way too often that as soon as I've fulfilled my usefulness, I'm dumped and they move on because they didn't respect me any more than I respected myself. If you, however, develop yourself to the point that your usefulness is universal and valuable, then the ball's in your court and you have the power to accept or reject and set the terms if you do accept. This doesn't mean that you should fight for more than you're worth. I've never been someone that's into ridiculous bravado, or I've been really bad in interviews, because you're basically supposed to sell yourself, and I'm not really good at selling myself, because they kind of expect everybody to come in there and go way over the top and, basically just about lie to them most of the time. And so they're kind of prepared for that. But so I've never really been good at promoting myself. But so back to this doesn't mean that you should fight for more than you're worth. There's definitely a balance and a give and take, and you're going to find yourself in a whole lot of learning situations where you figure out how to negotiate, but people know when they have the control and when you're too eager to prove your value. This is something that is really interesting with the whole regular staffer, the regular bowling staffer thing, is that everybody is so desperate to be a staffer with a company because they think that that means more than it means, or they think that it's different than it actually is. And so they're so desperate to say that they're on staff with somebody that they'll accept ridiculous agreements and spend a ton of their own money promoting, a ton of their own money and a ton of their own time and whatever else, just so that they can say that they're on staff for somebody. And I don't think that I don't think the companies necessarily take advantage of that. But if you have somebody throwing themselves at you to just because they want to be able to say that they're on staff, this is the way that I've given away a bunch of stuff myself, is that I'm so desperate for the recognition or the acknowledgement of I guess my skills or my whatever, my abilities or whatever you want to call it, that I basically just give everything away. And if you're giving everything away for free to somebody, why on earth are they going to want to, no, slow your roll. Let's change this. Let's set up something and we're going to give you this, or, let's make this a little bit more fair. If you're basically volunteering to do something for nothing, you'd have to be stupid to turn that down. So, where was I at here? You first need to find in any situation where the value, benefit, or opportunity for growth is for you, and then choose opportunities that best align themselves with the benefit you're after or the skill set you're trying to develop. This ensures that you're pursuing your own progress, and it allows you to best serve your employer because both of your goals are parallel. This is a benefit to both parties. The difficulty shows up when it's just a job because you have no motivation to excel, because you're simply there for the paycheck, and this can result in poor performance or work ethic and a low return for your employer. So while you don't necessarily want to give everything away, you don't want to go try to take advantage of somebody else, because this is an opportunity to teach you how to grind or to still put effort into something you had no interest in because of the intangibles. At some point, you're going to have to do things you don't like to do, but if you keep your focus several steps of where you are right now, this might provide you opportunities down the road. Too many people, and this is a big point, this is something I really have, something I would always recommend to everyone. Too many people don't realize that still taking care and putting effort into boring, tedious, tough, or undesirable jobs is a big beacon to employers. If you care about the small stuff, and if you put effort into lower level, lower paying jobs, there you know that you're going to perform well in jobs that offer more motivation or incentives. Now, this is a two-way street, because this is something that can get you taken advantage of at the same time. If you continue to go above and beyond and put 110% into everything that you do, they're like, well, holy crap, I'm getting this out of this person for this price. Why in the hell would I ever want to promote them or pay them more or whatever else? It doesn't make any sense. So at some certain point, you do have to realize your value, and there's a way to negotiate without you all of a sudden turning into, some word that I can't say on YouTube. Donkey. But there's definitely a give and take there. So this is fuzzy. All right, so moving on. Winning isn't the final result of the process, it is the process. It's putting in the work when it's the most boring, it's caring about the details, it's staying on track and staying focused, and realizing that nothing is ever wasted or worthless. Whether directly or indirectly, everything you do is going to teach you something that you'll be able to put or use towards your end goal. People will often complain about things that they learned in school. When am I ever going to use this in the real world, they'll say. It's not always necessarily about the information. It's about teaching your brain to think and operate in a different way. When do you ever lift weights out on a football field? I don't know, because I never played football. But you don't ever use, that's when people talk about stuff in school. It's like, when am I ever going to use this information? It's not necessarily always about the information. It's about teaching your brain a different way to think. So you don't ever lift weights out on the football field. The weights train your body to be able to perform the skills or have the stamina necessary to compete in the actual game. Now, some people get lost in the process, though. They focus on the work and forget the goal, and that's why I'm a loser. I mean, you will never be fully prepared, and this is it's holds so true for a bunch of friends that I have that have recently had kids or whatever else, or people that wait until they're 35 to start having kids because they're trying to be prepared either mentally, emotionally, financially. You're never going to be prepared for it, but you're never going to be prepared for anything in life. It's just that the younger you are, the easier it is to get into things, the easier it is to rebound. So you're never going to be fully prepared. You're never going to be ready, and you're never going to be done learning and growing. I mean, somebody like Norm Duke, who's one of the best on the planet, is still learning things. He says, I learn something different every time I go out and bowl. Now, it's easy to look at those that are more accomplished and say, well, but I'm not there yet. I can't compete with them. Therefore, I shouldn't be there. But how do you think that they got to that point? How many times did they get started in something and not know what they were doing or not have the experience for? Everyone has to start somewhere. And the sooner you get started, the more you know what you're going to have to work on. And that's something that, chasing another rabbit trail, this is why I never really got into many tournaments. I've never bowled a PBA regional or anything like that because I thought, well, I'm not ready yet. I'm not as good as these guys. There's a bunch of, we make jokes about it, but every little sweeper that we have in the Kansas City area here is basically a miniature PBA regional, because we have Brad Miller and Packy Hanrahan and Mitch Hoope, and half the frickin' PBA league is out in this area. And then we're not even talking about the regular local studs. We've got the 9-game USBC or 9-game scoring record holder in Dylan Burns out here too. So, and in addition to other guys that go out and succeed at regionals and have had some limited success on the tour, but just mop up stuff around here, and then we have the tour guys on top of it. And so I thought, well, I can't compete with these guys. I'd walk in the building and see, okay, well, Packy's here, Mitch is here, Ryan Burks is here, Tom Hess is here, Brad Miller's here, Kyle Sherman's here. And so instead of looking at the first place prize, I'm like, okay, well, I can't beat them, or them. Okay, 8th place pays this much, so we're going to look at that. That's ridiculous. That's just stupid. Realizing and understanding that is one thing, but letting that get in your head and automatically counting yourself out before they might have a terrible day. I mean, who knows? Probably not. Most of the time they don't. But you're not going to know what you have to work on if you don't get yourself out in the middle of those situations sometimes. And people get so bent out of shape about bowling tournaments because they're thinking, oh my God, I got money on the line, I have to perform, and I have to whatever else. And they start thinking about all the other stuff. When you get into tournaments early, it's a donation. I mean, it's a straight donation. You just have to write it off to begin with. If you think about getting any money back or competing or whatever else, that's not smart. You've got to go find out what it takes to compete. You got to go use it as practice. You have to go get comfortable. There's a friend of mine that used to be a pretty good action bowler. Him and a buddy of his would go around and just annihilate stuff here in the area, 20-ish years ago. And he told me one time, he's like, somebody told him that in order to get better, he had to go out and bowl a couple of PBA stops and get absolutely obliterated. And that would teach him more than, winning all this local stuff. And he didn't quite understand it, but he went out and did it. And he said, well, you have to get to the point where you're comfortable enough bowling tournaments and bowling for money that it's like just showing up to league. And most people still get pretty up for league. And so you need to get to the point where league feels like practice and tournaments feel like league and the only way to do that is to get into it and do it and figure out exactly what it's going to take so that you know what you actually have to work on both mentally and physically. So no one truly knows what to expect before they show up and participate. You can assume, you can have a good idea, but you won't ever truly know what to expect because people handle things differently. If you interview several different people who all do the same job or compete in the same sport, if you ask them what the most difficult part of it is, you're likely to get several different answers because challenge is relative to our abilities and perspectives. That's why when I do the 30 clean episodes for the few that I've done so far, that's why I have a standard set of questions. I want to ask every one of them the same exact questions, because I want to get different perspectives. I want to get different thoughts. That's the whole point of asking everybody the same questions, is because is more to illustrate that you can see that, you know, even though they're all professionals and even though they're all good, they could come at things from wildly different places. What bugs somebody on a TV show, for example, could be great news for somebody else. So it's, you know, everybody ticks a little bit differently. So part of training and part of learning is getting out there and failing. And for some reason, I always thought that failing meant that you weren't ready. Failing is learning. Failing is teaching. It's more valuable than random drills or exercise. Drills teach you how to execute. Failure teaches you how to perform. I'm going to say that again. Drills teach you how to execute. So you can see somebody that's really good in practice, and I hear people all the time, well, I shot this number in practice or did this number in practice, then I get in league and the lights turn on and I suck. Drills teach you how to execute. Failure teaches you how to perform. Executing and performing are two totally different things. Have you ever listened to someone who could play the piano, or have you ever listened to anybody play the piano that could technically execute the notes versus someone who could perform? There are nuances, subtlety, and skill in everything beyond the technical execution, and we've all seen technically or mechanically gifted athletes that had all the tools that could. Okay, hang on. There are nuances, subtlety, and skill in everything beyond the technical execution, and we've all seen technically or mechanically gifted athletes that had all the tools to succeed but could never fulfill their potential. I don't know how many times you look at somebody and say, oh my God, they've got a great game, and they can't seem to put it together. They can't seem to get it down. They can't seem to make it work out. And then you see somebody like Jacob Utreff that looks like a complete disaster, and he just mows people down because he knows how to bowl and he's got a winning mindset, and he doesn't pay attention to all that superfluous crap that I've focused on for however many years now. You know, it's not about how pretty you look. It's not about, you know, anything else. It's about getting the pins down and having a higher score at the end of the game than the other guy or the other gal or the other person, or, you know, whatever you want to say. And he does that really well. It looks terrible, but he can repeat it. That's all that matters. I mean, the rules and the very basic rules of bowling are stay behind the line and knock the pins down. If you're doing that, then that's the only point. Everything that you're practicing, everything that you're working on up to that point is to accomplish that, to make that happen. And so it doesn't matter, you know, all this stuff that people worry about doesn't actually matter. It just doesn't. Now, gifts will help you succeed or achieve success early, or at the very least compete at a high level early and quickly, but they also usually result in a high level of inconsistency. Now, if you have somebody that's very physically gifted and just has the game, so to speak, they'll do really well when the activity or challenge suits their gifts or abilities, but they'll struggle if the difficulty is changed or the skill set necessary is adjusted. So you'll have some people that just annihilate one shot and do terrible somewhere else because they're physically better than they are mentally. Now, there's also false confidence. If you succeed at something too quickly, it can give you false positives or make you think you're further along, better prepared, or more skilled than you actually are. This is also a key to my failure. I'm a concept person. I can very easily understand concepts or the idea behind how something works or what the point is. A is where I'm starting, and I understand Z. I have no idea how to get there, though. And this is what's always frustrating me, because I'm able to understand where something needs to end up, or the attributes that make something quality, but knowing the process or how to accomplish that always has to be learned. For instance, I love advertising and marketing. I understand how it's supposed to work. We can all look at something like a funny Geico commercial and like it at a basic level, but I also have a solid understanding of why it's good and why it's effective. However, I have no real idea how to go about accomplishing that. I can see, okay, this is great, and I know where I'm starting. I have no idea how to get there most of the time. Now, take something like a bowling video. I know what makes a good bowling video and why it's a good one, but I struggled for years because I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to make thumbnails. I didn't know how to make slides, pull off certain effects, or get something to look the way that I wanted it to look, or get a finished, polished product. So I released quite a few videos I wasn't happy with because I knew what I wanted to end up with, but I didn't know how to get there. I even had a couple videos that had an orange tint to them because I purchased new editing software that came with a preset that transformed the view, and I didn't know how to turn it off. So if you go back and watch my No Rules Pearl video and my Recum video, I'm pretty sure they're orange because I'd gotten a new editing software and I didn't know how to turn the preset off. So obviously I didn't want my videos to be orange. I sat there and fought with it forever, and I do Google searches and whatever else. I couldn't figure out how to turn off that setting or what the hell was making the video orange. So obviously I knew that wasn't, that didn't look like a good video, but at the end of the day, I ended up having no choice but to post it and try to figure it out later. So you just have to get in the middle of things and figure them out. So I even had it. Okay, so obviously I didn't want the video to be orange, but I didn't know how to change it and had to do some research and learning to figure out how to get things the way that I wanted them. Knowing what you want, though, is critical to knowing what you need to work on. There are those out there that don't understand what to do until they understand how to do it. And that's maybe a little confusing. Got to think about it for a second. So people, there are those out there that don't understand what to do until they understand how to do it. These people have the hardest time setting goals and fulfilling them because they don't know what they want their goals to be until they've had a solid amount of time being involved in something. So somebody will have to, though I don't know if I'm going to like this or not, they have to get into it and actually work with it and see how easy it comes to them, or whatever else. I can look at something at surface value, and because I know my skill set, I know what I'm good at, I know what I can't stand, whatever else, I can tell instantly whether, oh, this is something I'm going to get into, or this is something that's going to be absolutely awful. And a lot of people out there don't have that. They think, okay, well, I mean, we'll get into it and see what happens, but I don't know. You know, both kinds of these people, though, can get mired in the process because while they may have trouble finding direction, I have trouble putting in the work and slogging through the process when I know exactly what I want and how it needs to end up. And so even though I have, you know, if I want to do a certain video effect or something, or if I want the video to end up a certain way, I get this all conceptualized in my mind. I know exactly how it needs to turn out or what it should be as a final product, but I don't know how to make that happen. So I have a very hard time sitting there and, you know, searching YouTube videos and looking for how do I pull off this effect, or how do I do that, or how do I make the Star Wars scrolling effect for my new intro that I did. How do I do this and how do I do that? It's just so boring because I know exactly how I want it to end up, but I don't know how to make it happen. So you can't skip the work either way, but the work is worthless if you don't know where it's going. My skill set learns toward being a better coach because I know exactly where I can look at somebody and know exactly what the ball reaction needs to do, what they need to be doing. And so I can take somebody and I can work with them and help them get there. But, you know, I'm not the greatest performer because all that stuff is just circulating in my head. I don't have that kind of, you know, that kind of black and white mentality where I can just say, oh, okay, I need to do this and I'm going to go do this. I'm thinking about all the nuances and the subtleties and the this and that. And by the time I start my approach and get to the foul line, I'm so mentally cramped that I can't let the ball go because I'm trying to do a million things all at the same time. Now, again, my skill set leans toward being a better coach, and the latter skill set learns toward being a better performer because the former can provide the latter with goals and direction for the one who is more involved in the process. So for somebody who is not very good at setting goals or is not very goal oriented, they just want to get into something and participate in it. There's a lot of people that just, and this is the thing, I'm done with the article here, but I'm going to ramble for another few minutes, most likely. But the thing that always gets me is that a lot of athletes out there don't make very good coaches. Michael Jordan's one of the best athletes of all time. You'll never catch him trying to coach anybody because that's just not his thing. He's a performer. And oftentimes performers don't make very good coaches. And on the other side of thing, there's a lot of coaches that don't make very good performers. So if somebody thinks, oh, because, you know, so and so famous is coaching me or drilling my ball, they may not have any idea what they're doing. They may be very good at doing it, but as far as coaching it or translating it to somebody else or kind of instructing them, they might be terrible at it. So just because somebody does something well, that's no reason to assume that they're naturally going to coach it or teach it well. And the flip side is true. Just because somebody can't do something very well doesn't mean that they don't have a very good ability to teach or instruct in it. Now, it's kind of weird to think about that. If somebody doesn't do something well, it's very hard to think, okay, well, you're not very good at this, so why would I trust you to teach me? So that can get into kind of some nebulous territory. But again, so this is chapter 4 on how to win by an expert in losing. My wife even got me glasses, you know, some beer glasses that have second place on them, because I'm so good at getting second place that it's just not even funny. Or if I'm not getting second place, I'm losing. I'm definitely not winning. The winning thing has become something recent, or one whole local tournament. But anyway, I just want to talk about that because I thought that that could help a lot of people, because it's just a general idea of, you know, a lot of people are too hesitant to get out there and do things, or they get easily intimidated, or, you know, I'm a very starstruck person, but at the same time, you know, if you can't even, you're not going to succeed at regionals if you're too busy watching Chris Barnes a little bit further down here, or AJ Johnson down here, or, you know, whoever else. You know, you're not going to get very far if you always sell yourself short. And if you don't go out and practice in some of these tournaments, you're never going to figure out what you need to work on. You're never going to get to that. You're always going to be not good enough. And so eventually you just have to get out there and find out what you need to do. And there's such a ridiculous pecking order in bowling that I can't blame people for not wanting to get out there, because you'll show up to something like a regional and people are going, well, I mean, you're terrible. What the hell are you doing out here? Well, I'm out here trying to learn. So you just got to get out there and do it. You know, how do you think that, take somebody like Jacob Buttriff, who I don't want to pick on because he's phenomenal, but he's unconventional. Let's say that. But can you imagine the first several regionals that this guy showed up to, and everybody's watching him kind of run up to the line and shove the ball with a conventional grip? This isn't something that you would teach or recommend to anybody, but he's so strong mentally that he thought, you know what, I can do this. He believed in himself. And I imagine him as being a very good concept person, knowing, well, I know that I need to end up here, and we're just going to figure out the process from here. But he understands ball reaction. He understands angles and lane play and all this other stuff. That's why he's so successful, despite not having AJ Johnson's physical game. You know, somebody else like, you know, I think his name's Tim Cagle, but he's the guy that he doesn't have a backswing. He holds it in the middle of his chest and he kind of runs up there and pumps it back and forth a couple times, and then he throws a backup ball. And he's actually really good. Anthony Simonson, I think, is another guy. He doesn't give a heck what it takes to get the pins down. I mean, he doesn't care, and I really appreciate somebody like that. Now, he's got a pretty good physical game too. It's a little quirky, but at the same time, he just knows how to bowl. He just knows how to knock the pins down, and he's not going to be. He doesn't care what it looks like. He doesn't care what anybody says. He's going to stay behind the foul line, knock the pins down. That's all that matters in his world, and he knows how to get that done. So, I mean, that's just kind of is what it is. So I've rambled for long enough here, so I'm going to log off and finish sipping on my dandelion tea and write a couple more videos here to get up this weekend. But hopefully this has helped. Hopefully this was interesting. I might do more stuff like this in the future if I ever get this thing finished. I think I'm about halfway through chapter 5 after posting chapter 4 or 5 months ago, or however long it's been. So that's enough rambling. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording and upload this. Hopefully the the whole camera test went well. If it didn't, I just sat here and rambled for a half an hour like an idiot, and this isn't going to work out, then I mean, I guess it's no different than me rambling like an idiot with it actually getting recorded. Maybe it's better if it doesn't get recorded. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you later, and may the strikes be with you.